Before we begin, drop a comment below with your country and what time it is right now where you're watching. Whether it's sunrise in Nairobi, midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France, I want to know. Don't just sit back. Tell me where in the world you are. Now, let's dive into the story. Aria Winfell's wrists stung as the rough rope scraped her skin, while two guards dragged her across the courtyard stones of Moonfell Reach. Every step broke what little trust she had left in her pack. Torches hissed in the cold night wind, their flames bending like they wanted to look away from the cruelty unfolding beneath them. Pack members gathered in a wide circle, their eyes avoiding hers, as if shame itself weighed down their heads. Maelric Varen, her alpha, stepped forward with a satisfaction that chilled her more than the night air. The Lycan King, Lorien Thornevale, stood waiting near the torches, shadow stretching long behind him like a dark omen. His presence swallowed every sound around them. Aria tried to swallow her fear, but it rose anyway, thick and bitter. She should have been surrounded by family. Instead, she felt like prey being delivered to a hunter. When Maelric forced her to her knees before the Lycan King, humiliation burned through her like wildfire. The damp ground soaked into her clothes, but she held her head high, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing her crumble. Lorien's boots stopped inches from her hands, black, polished, etched with symbols that seemed to shimmer under the torchlight. She lifted her face, breath unsteady. His expression was unreadable, carved from something colder than stone. "This is the one?" he asked, voice deep enough to vibrate in her bones. Maelric nodded quickly, like a servant eager to please. "Aria Winfell. She will settle the debt owed for your fallen envoy." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Alaria's breath hitched. Envoy? She'd never harmed a Lycan in her life. She opened her mouth to deny it, but fear sealed the words in her throat. Lorien studied her quietly, then said, "So be it." Those three simple words shattered the world she knew. On the edge of the crowd, Sivren, her younger sibling, stood trembling. The moment they tried to rush toward her, guards blocked their path. The panic on Sivren's face stabbed through Aria like a blade. She lunged forward despite her restraints, only to be yanked back by the warriors gripping her arms. "Leave them out of this," she shouted, voice cracking with desperation. Maelric didn't even glance at Sivren. "The debt belongs to your bloodline," he said. "You are eldest. The burden falls to you." Aria felt the ground tilt beneath her. Burden, debt, lies. She stared at him, heart burning with betrayal so deep she thought it might consume her. "You're doing this because you want me gone," she whispered. He didn't deny it. That silence told her everything. He had feared her strength, her instincts, her growing influence. Sacrificing her wasn't justice. It was an opportunity. And her pack, the people she had bled beside, stood and watched as if she were nothing more than a scrap being handed to wolves. Lorien turned to leave, as though the agreement were already sealed in iron. "We ride at dawn," he said to Rin Calderis, his second in command, who nodded calmly. Maelric stepped close enough that Aria could feel his breath on her cheek. "This is what defiance earns," he murmured, voice soft and cruel. Rage surged through her, hot and suffocating, but she was bound, surrounded, powerless to strike back. The torches blurred at the edges as tears gathered, though she refused to let them fall. She caught the gaze of Thalen Meyerwood, the pack's old healer, watching her with eyes full of regret. But regret didn't cut ropes. Regret didn't stop betrayal. Rin gripped her arm firmly and pulled her to her feet. His touch was strong, steady, almost apologetic. She hated needing that sliver of kindness. As they led her toward the waiting carriage, she glanced once more at the pack. Face after face looked away. Not one brave voice rose for her. Not even Sivren, blocked by guards, trembling, powerless. Just as Rin guided her up the carriage steps, a sharp cracking sound tore through the courtyard, like the snap of an ancient tree trunk. The torches sputtered violently, their flames bending sideways in a sudden, unnatural gust. Aria froze, instinct screaming. The wind carried a metallic scent, strange, cold, and wrong. Lorien's head lifted slightly, silver eyes narrowing as if he, too, sensed the shift. For a moment, the entire courtyard fell into uneasy silence. Then, from the distant edge of the Whisper Bloom Wilds, she felt it, an unblinking gaze, something lurking just beyond the tree line, watching. Not Pack, not Lycan, something else, something she didn't have a name for. Before she could look longer, Rin pushed her gently into the carriage. The door slammed shut, sealing her in darkness, broken only by a sliver of moonlight. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears, betrayed by her alpha, sold to a king, driven away from her home in chains. But underneath the terror, something fierce sparked awake, a stubborn ember refusing to die. This was not her ending. One day, Moonfell Reach would choke on the truth they buried tonight. And when that day came, Aria Winfell would no longer be the girl they sacrificed. She would be something far more dangerous. The carriage wheels groaned beneath Aria as it rolled through the dark, but her mind had already slipped backward. Back to the morning, everything began to crack. It was barely dawn when she woke to the smell of baking root bread drifting through the small wooden cabin she shared with Sivrin. Sunlight filtered through the crooked shutters, painting thin golden lines across Sivrin's sleeping face. For a single peaceful second, she wished she could freeze that moment forever, long before debts and kings and chains. Aria brushed a strand of hair behind her sibling's ear, whispering, "Just one calm day. That's all I want." But fate had a cruel sense of humor. A sudden knock rattled the door, sharp and urgent. She slipped on her boots and pulled it open to find Thalen Meyerwood, standing with his cloak half thrown over one shoulder, breathless as if he had run across all of Moonfell Reach. "Aria," he said, voice trembling with something heavier than fear. "Malric summons you to the hall. Immediately." She froze. Summons at dawn never meant anything good, and Thalen's eyes, usually warm, held a solemn warning she couldn't decipher. "What happened?" she asked, but he only shook his head. "Just go, and be careful." Inside the Alpha's hall, tension clung to the walls like frost. Aria stepped inside, heart beating painfully hard, as Maelric stood near the long table, hands clasped behind his back, as though posing for a portrait of leadership. Wolves of high rank lined the room, some pacing, some whispering, all wearing expressions that made her stomach twist. Maelric turned toward her slowly. "You're late," he said, though she wasn't. She bowed stiffly, refusing the submissive posture he always tried to force on her. "I came as soon as I was called." His eyes flicked over her, calculating, cold. "An envoy of the Lycan King was found dead last night," he said. The room stirred with sharp whispers. Aria blinked, stunned. "What does that have to do with me?" Malric stepped closer, gaze narrowing. "Tracks found near the envoy's body match Winfell markings." Her blood went cold. "That's impossible." But no one stepped forward to agree. No one defended her. Malric lifted a folded parchment and held it like proof of guilt. "The king demands the bloodline responsible pay the debt." Aria stared at him, breath shallow. "You know I didn't do this." For a heartbeat, she thought she saw a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. Then it vanished. "We all must pay for the actions of our kin," he said. It wasn't an accusation. It was a sentence. The council meeting dragged on like a storm trying to swallow itself, voices clashing as elders debated what the blood price should be. Aria stood in the corner, heart pounding, listening to her fate being shaped by lies. "We can't risk war with the Lycans," one elder hissed. "We have children here," another snapped. "So sacrifice one," a younger wolf argued. "Her talents are exactly why she's dangerous," Malric cut in sharply, silencing the room. Alaria's breath caught. Dangerous. He'd always hated her strength, her instincts, her refusal to be obedient clay in his hands. She suddenly realized how long Malric had been waiting for an excuse to cut her out of the pack's future. "I didn't kill anyone," she said, voice raw but steady. "If you don't know that after all these years—" "Enough," Malric growled. "The Lycan King demands payment tonight." A chill swept through the room. Sivrin burst through the door then, breathless and terrified. "You can't take her!" they cried. Guards moved instantly, blocking them. Aria felt her heart fracture as Sivrin struggled against two warriors, shouting her name. The council watched silently. Not one step forward to help. Not one questioned Malric's resolve. Aria finally understood something painful. She was alone in a room full of people she once loved. Later that evening, Thalen found her sitting on the hill overlooking the Whisperbloom wilds, the wind tugging at her hair as if urging her to run. The healer approached quietly, lowering himself beside her, with the heaviness of someone carrying a secret too large for his chest. "Ilaria," he said softly, "you must listen to me." She didn't turn to him. She stared at the tree line where fireflies danced like fading stars. "They're going to hand me over," she whispered. He didn't deny it, and that hurt most. "The king believes a Windfell killed his envoy." She clenched her jaw. "A lie." "A convenient one," Thalen murmured. "And Malric, he is not fighting it." Ilaria's hands tightened in the grass until her knuckles paled. "Why?" she asked. "Why me?" Thalen hesitated long enough to reveal the truth wasn't simple. "Your father defied Malric many years ago, more than you know. And some wounds in leaders might become excuses waiting for moments like this." The words hit like a blow. Old memories flickered. Her father's voice telling her to be brave, to question, to stand strong, and Malric always watching from a distance, eyes filled with silent resentment. "So this is revenge," she whispered. Thalen looked at her sadly. "This is politics dressed as justice." Night fell heavy over Moonfell Reach, settling like a shroud across the rooftops and forest edges. Ilaria returned to her cabin to find Sivrin curled on her bed, tears staining their cheeks. They sprang up the moment she entered, throwing their arms around her with desperate strength. "I'll come with you," Sivrin said. "Wherever they send you, I'll go." Ilaria held them close, heartbreaking at the innocence in their voice. "No," she whispered. "You stay here." Sivrin trembled fiercely. "They're wrong, Ella. They're wrong and cowards and—" Ilaria cupped their face gently. "Promise me you'll live. Promise me you won't follow me into danger." Sivrin shook their head wildly, refusing. Ilaria pulled them into her arms again, memorizing the way they fit against her chest, the way their heartbeat fluttered like frightened wings. She didn't sleep that night. She watched the moon rise slowly, watched it shine across the treetops, silver and indifferent, and as dawn approached, as footsteps marched toward her, cabin to drag her to the courtyard, Ilaria whispered a vow into the cold morning air. "If the gods will not save me, then I will save myself." But even then, she had no idea just how deep Malric's betrayal ran, or how closely the Lycan King had been watching her fate unfold. The morning she was taken felt like a dream she couldn't wake from. Too quiet, too cold, too unreal. Dawn bled across the sky in streaks of pale gold as the courtyard filled with the murmurs of wolves who refused to meet her eyes. Ilaria stood between two guards, wrists bound, heart pounding like it was trying to escape her chest. She forced herself not to look at Sivrin. If she did, she knew she would break. Lorien Thornavale waited near a black-armored carriage, his silver gaze scanning the pack with the detached calm of someone inspecting distant property rather than people. For one breath, Ilaria wondered if he truly believed she was guilty, or if she was merely convenient. When he looked at her, something unreadable flickered across his face. Not pity, not cruelty, something in between. "We leave," he said simply. Malric bowed stiffly, a gesture filled with false respect. Ilaria burned the image into her memory. Malric, lowering his head, not for justice, but for the lie he had crafted. As Lorien motioned for her to be brought forward, Aria felt the weight of a future she didn't choose, tightening around her like a snare. And yet, somewhere beneath the fear, a spark of defiance whispered, "This is not the end." The journey began with the creaking wheels of the carriage grinding over roots and stones, each jolt scraping at her nerves. Inside, the air was dim and heavy with the scent of ironwood and cold leather. Rin Calderas sat across from her, posture relaxed but alert, his violet eyes watching her as if waiting for her to attempt escape. Aria kept her gaze fixed on the passing blur of trees through the narrow window. Whisperbloom wilds surrounded them, ancient and restless, the wind threading through branches like hushed voices. "You're quiet," Rin said, tone softer than she expected. She didn't answer. Her silence wasn't compliance. It was strategy. She was learning them. How the Lycan King's guard moved. How far they allowed her to shift her weight. How often Lorien glanced back at the carriage from his horse. Rin leaned forward slightly. "If you didn't do what they accuse you of, the king will know." Aria met his eyes sharply. "Will he?" Rin hesitated, jaw tightening. "He's no executioner, not without cause." She searched his face for any sign of deceit, but found none. But trusting a stranger, especially a Lycan, felt like walking blindfolded into fire. Still, the seed he planted lodged deep inside her. If the king sees truth, what then? Hours passed before the caravan stopped at a river crossing. Lorien dismounted first, giving orders in low, controlled tones. As Rin unlatched the carriage door, cold air rushed in, carrying the sharp scent of pine and wet stone. Aria stepped out cautiously, every sense heightened. The river glittered beneath the morning sun, fast and fierce, like it hungered to swallow anyone who dared step too close. Lorien watched her from the riverbank, arms crossed, expression inscrutable. "You will drink," he said. Not a request, an instruction, a test of obedience, a test of spirit. She walked to the water slowly, refusing to let her legs shake. Kneeling, she cupped her hands, letting the icy water gather before lifting it to her lips. The cold shocked through her, sharp enough to clear her mind. As she drank, she felt Lorien's gaze on her, heavy, assessing. "You don't smell of guilt," he said quietly, almost to himself. Aria froze. His words sliced through her like lightning. She turned to him, breath-catching. "Then why take me?" Lorien's gaze flicked briefly to the trees, then back to her. The blood price must be answered. It wasn't an explanation. It was a warning. They continued deeper into the forest, the trees growing taller and darker, forming a canopy that swallowed most of the daylight. Shadows danced across the path like restless spirits. Ilaria's unease grew with each step. She had traveled these woods before, but today they felt foreign, as though the forest itself knew she wasn't returning home. A sudden crack echoed through the trees, the same sound she'd heard the night she was taken. Rin immediately reached for his blade. Lorien halted his horse, jaw tightening. The air thickened with tension. "Again," he muttered, scanning the tree line. Aria followed his gaze, heart pounding. Something moved in the shadows, a shiver through the ferns, a glint of eyes too high to belong to any wolf. Rin stepped closer to her, positioning himself between her and the trees. "We're not alone," he murmured. Lorien's voice was firm, sharp. "Move. Now." The caravan quickened its pace, but Ilaria's instincts screamed. Something was trailing them, something that had followed since Moonfell Reach. And for the first time, she wondered if she was being hunted, not just by fate or politics, but by something far older. By dusk, they reached a ridge oval, overlooking the vast stretch of the Dusk Spire realm, Lorien's territory. Crimson stone towers rose in the distance, glowing faintly beneath the twilight sky, as though lit from within. The sight stole Ilaria's breath. She had never seen anything so hauntingly beautiful. But beauty didn't erase fear. As the caravan descended the path toward the castle, Lorien slowed his horse until he rode beside the carriage, close enough for her to hear him through the open window. "Moonfell lied," he said quietly. Alaria's pulse surged. "You knew?" "I suspected." His gaze stayed forward, fixed on the approaching fortress. "But suspicion is not truth. Truth requires time, and until I have it, you stay under my watch." Her breath trembled. "As a prisoner?" He turned his head just enough for their eyes to meet. "As a debt." For a moment she saw something strange flicker in his eyes. Regret, maybe? Or recognition? Then it was gone. Guards pulled the gates open, torches blazing alive as the caravan passed through. Ilaria forced herself to stand tall, refusing to show fear, even as the walls of Crimson Stone Keep closed around her like the mouth of a sleeping beast. She didn't know what awaited her inside, but she knew one thing with terrifying clarity. The truth Maelric buried was about to surface, and when it did, someone's world, hers, or the Lycan King's, would shatter. Crimson Stone Keep swallowed Ilaria whole the moment the gates clanged shut behind her. The courtyard buzzed with activity, warriors sharpening blades, messengers darting between stone archways, patrol wolves shifting seamlessly into their human forms. Torches burned high along the ramparts, illuminating the red-streaked stone that gave the fortress its haunting name. Ilaria stepped out of the carriage with Rin's steady hand on her arm, though she sensed he was more guide than captor now. Lorien dismounted from his horse, every movement controlled, quiet, calculated. She felt his gaze on her as he ordered the guards to stand down, as if assessing whether she would bolt. She didn't. Running inside a fortress would be suicide, and she wasn't foolish. Furious, frightened, betrayed, but not foolish. A gust of cold wind swept through the courtyard, lifting her hair and sending a shiver down her spine. "Follow me," Lorien said, his voice echoing against the towering walls. She hesitated before stepping after him, her footsteps small but steady. The keep felt alive, humming with whispers and glances. Wolves paused their duties to look at her, curiosity and suspicion mingling in their expressions. She held her chin high. If they expected her to break, they would have to wait a very long time. Inside the corridors were dimly lit with lanterns that cast warm gold across the stone. Their light flickered over tapestries depicting past kings, battles carved into memory. Ilaria wished she could ignore the knot in her stomach, but the silence around her felt too sharp, too heavy. Lorien led her through several winding hallways before stopping outside a steel-banded door. "This will be your room," he said. The door creaked open to reveal a simple chamber, a bed, a small table, a window overlooking the ravine below. It wasn't a cell, but it wasn't freedom either. Ilaria stepped inside, her eyes sweeping the space cautiously. There were no chains, no bars, yet the thick stone walls felt more constricting than any rope. "I don't want comfort," she said quietly. "I want the truth." Lorien's gaze lingered on her for a moment. "Comfort is not what I'm offering." His tone held something unreadable, not harsh, not gentle, simply fact. He stepped back from the doorway. "You will not be harmed here, Ilaria Winfell, but you are not permitted to leave without escort." Anger flared inside her chest. "I didn't kill your envoy." Lorien's jaw tightened ever so slightly. "I know." The door shut before she could respond, leaving her staring at the cold stone as her heartbeat thundered with confusion. Night crept into the chamber slowly. Ilaria sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the faint sounds of the keep, distant footsteps, the crackling of torches, the muffled howl of wolves shifting outside the walls. She pressed her palms together, grounding herself. She had imagined 1,000 ways her life might fall apart, but never this. Never being offered like a bargaining chip to the most feared Lycan in the realm. She leaned her head back and exhaled shakily. Her thoughts drifted to Sivrin. Were they safe? Did they know she was still alive? The silence gave her no answers. When a soft knock rapped against the door, she tensed instantly. Rin entered without waiting for permission, carrying a tray with warm stew and bread. The steam curled up like smoke, filling the room with a scent that made her realize how long it had been since she'd eaten. "You should take something," Rin said. "You've had a day no one should endure hungry." Aria eyed him warily. "Do guards normally deliver food to prisoners?" Rin smirked faintly. "No, but the king told me to look after you." Her heart stumbled. "Why?" Rin shrugged. "Ask him." She hated that answer. Hated the uncertainty, the suspicion, the faint spark of hope she didn't trust. After Rin left, Aria ate mechanically, trying to focus on the warmth spreading through her body rather than the questions clawing at her mind. She paced the room, unable to sit still, the wooden floor creaking beneath her feet. Her instincts kept prickling, warning her of something she couldn't see. And then she felt it, a soft shift in the air, like the room itself inhaled. She turned sharply toward the window. Outside, the ravine stretched into deep shadows, the wind howling through the rocks like a beast mourning. But that wasn't what made her blood run cold. Down below, among the shifting darkness, a pair of eyes glowed. Too high for a wolf, too steady for a human, watching her. Her breath caught, and a chill rippled across her skin. This presence, this silent observer, had followed her since Moonfell Reach, and it was here now, lurking beneath the king's fortress. As she stepped closer to the window, the eyes blinked once and vanished into the shadows. Her heart pounded violently, her palms slick with sweat. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't done with her. When a quiet voice spoke behind her, she nearly jumped. "You sense it, too," Lorien said from the doorway. She spun around, startled to find him standing there. No guards, no warning. His expression was unreadable in the low light. "Something followed us from your pack," he said. "Something old." Aria swallowed hard. "You saw it?" "I felt it." He stepped forward, stopping a few feet from her. The tension between them thickened, heavy and electric. "I suspect your Alpha knows more than he admits, and I suspect the envoy's death is no simple murder." Ilaria's pulse quickened. "Then why am I here? Why take me for something you know I didn't do?" Lorien held her gaze, his silver eyes reflecting the torchlight like molten moonstone. "Because someone wants you gone," he said quietly, "and I intend to find out who and why." For a moment, the world stopped around her. In his voice, she heard no threat, only truth, dangerous truth. "You are not a debt to me, Aria Winfell," he added softly. "You are a key." Her breath trembled. "To what?" His answer came like a whisper from a storm. "To everything your Alpha fears." Then he stepped back into the doorway. "Rest. Tomorrow we begin." And as the door closed, Aria knew with bone-deep certainty her story wasn't leading toward death. It was leading toward revelation, and she was no longer a pawn. She was becoming the spark that could burn Moonfell Reach to the ground. Morning in Crimsonstone Keep arrived not with gentle sunlight, but with the roar of training grounds awakening. Metal clashed, shouts carried across the courtyard, and the air thrummed with the energy of warriors preparing for battle. Aria stood by her window, watching Lycans spar with a mix of artistry and violence that took her breath away. They moved differently than wolves, faster, heavier, more precise, their power flowing with terrifying ease. The sight sent a ripple of unease through her. She didn't fear them, not truly, but she feared what it meant to be surrounded by those trained to kill without hesitation. Her door opened quietly, and Lorien stepped in. His presence filled the room like a shifting storm, controlled, powerful, unreadable. "Eat first," he said, placing a tray on the table. "Then we begin." She eyed him. "Begin what?" "Finding the truth." His voice held no softness, but there was no cruelty either, just purpose. She approached him cautiously, searching his face for any sign of deception. "Why help me?" His gaze flicked to hers. "Because someone is lying, and I do not tolerate manipulation in my realm." It was more honesty than she'd ever heard from an Alpha. It made her pulse react in ways she didn't want to examine. Lorien led her through a corridor that wound deep into the heart of the keep. The walls grew darker, colder, carved with symbols she didn't recognize. Rin joined them halfway, his hand resting on the hilt of his blade. "Scouts returned this morning," he said. "Tracks found near the eastern ridge." Lorien nodded. "The same creature?" "Likely." Alaria's stomach tightened. Creature. The word felt wrong. Too small for the presence she sensed watching her. "Whatever followed us," Lorien said, glancing at her, "is connected to your alpha." She stopped walking. "To Maelric? No. If he wanted me gone, he wouldn't use a monster. He'd use politics or violence." Lorien's expression sharpened. "There are forces older than politics." They reached a chamber where maps covered the walls, candles flickering across inked borders and patrol routes. Lorien pointed to a symbol etched in red. This mark was found at the envoy's death site. Alaria stepped closer, breath-catching. She knew that symbol, a spiral carved deep into a tree outside Moonfell Reach, a warning she'd seen since childhood, told never to touch. "That's an elder rune," she whispered. "My father used to say it meant danger." Lorien's eyes locked on hers. "Your father knew more than he told you." Her chest constricted, memories rising like ghosts. She saw her father's face, stern but loving, always watchful, always wary of the forest. She remembered the way he would draw her close at night and tell her stories of ancient things that walked in shadows, things wolves weren't meant to face. She hadn't thought of those tales in years. "He died before he could explain," she murmured. "He said some threats can't be fought with teeth." Lorien watched her carefully. "Your father's death, was it natural?" The question hit her like a blow. She swallowed hard. "Everyone said it was a hunting accident." "And you believe that?" She hesitated. A long beat of silence stretched between them. "I wanted to." Lorien stepped closer, lowering his voice. "The envoy who died. He was investigating something near Moonfell Reach, something tied to elder runes." Her breath fractured. "So Maelric blamed me to cover it, or to remove you because he fears what you might uncover." The words stung because they made sense. Her father's death, the strange warnings, Maelric's hatred, the creature watching her, all threads in a web she had never seen clearly before, and now they were tightening around her. Lorien motioned for Rin to bring forward a small chest. Inside it lay a torn scrap of fabric, stiff with dried blood. Runes were burned into the cloth. Alaria touched it with trembling fingers. The symbol pulsed faintly beneath her skin, warm and cold at the same time. A sensation like a whisper brushed the edge of her mind. Her breath caught. "I felt this before," she whispered. Rin frowned. "Where?" Alaria closed her eyes. "Years ago, before my father died, he took me deep into the Whisper Bloom wilds. He made me promise never to go there alone." Her voice thinned. "And I heard something there, a whisper, a voice that wasn't a voice." The room fell silent. Lorien didn't look surprised, only grim. "Elder forces don't kill envoys," he said. "They influence." Heat crawled up Alaria's neck. "You're saying my alpha is using ancient magic?" Lorien shook his head. "No, I'm saying your alpha woke something he cannot control." The thought made her knees weaken. If Maelric had made a pact with something old, something hungry, then the envoy's death was only the beginning, and her being offered as payment was not political, it was sacrificial. The chamber door swung open suddenly as a guard rushed in, breathless. "Your Majesty," he said to Lorien, "the creature, it's been spotted near the southern wall." Alaria's blood turned to ice. Lorien's expression hardened immediately. "Rin, with me." Then he turned to Alaria. "You stay here." She shook her head. "I can help." "No," he said firmly, stepping close enough that she could feel the warmth of his breath. "What waits outside wants you." Her heart hammered. All the more reason to face it. His jaw tightened. She saw conflict there, tension, concern, maybe even fear for her. "Not yet," he said. "Not until I understand why." He motioned for the guards to remain with her and vanished down the corridor with Rin at his side. Aria paced the room, panic twisting through her. Something ancient had followed her. Something tied to her father, to runes, to lies buried in Moonfell Reach. And now it prowled the Lycan King's walls, when a distant roar ripped through the air, deep, unnatural, bone-shaking. The torches flickered violently. The guards stiffened. Alaria's instinct screamed warnings she couldn't ignore. Whatever hunted her had found her scent again, and she realized with a shiver, she wasn't just a key, as Lorien said. She was the target. The roar that tore through Crimson Stone Keep shattered the night like a stone dropped into still water. Violent, echoing, impossible to ignore. Aria froze as the sound vibrated through the stone walls, deep enough to rattle her bones. The guards at the door exchanged alarm glances before rushing into position, their swords drawn and hands trembling despite their training. Another roar followed, closer this time, scraping at the edges of her mind like claws dragging across stone. Aria pressed her palm to the wall, her instincts pulling her toward the danger rather than away from it. Something is calling you. The thought wasn't hers, yet it pulsed through her skull. A whisper without a voice. The guards stepped forward as shadows flickered beneath the door, but Aria pushed past them. "I need to see Lorien." "You cannot leave," one guard said, fear sharpening his tone. "By the king's order." "Then bring him to me," she snapped. But even as she spoke, the castle trembled again, this time as something enormous slammed into the southern tower. Dust rained from the ceiling. A crack snaked through the wall. The guards hesitated just long enough for Aria to slip between them and bolt into the hall, heart hammering, instinct blazing. Behind her, one guard swore and followed, but she was already gone. The corridor twisted like a serpent beneath torchlight that flickered wildly with each distant impact. Aria ran, breath sharp, feet pounding against stone floors. With every turn, the whispers grew louder, silent pressure against her mind, urging, calling, beckoning her closer. "Stop!" the guard shouted somewhere behind her, but she ignored him. She rounded a corner so sharply she nearly collided with Rin, who skidded to a halt, eyes wide. "What are you doing out of your room?" he demanded. "You need to get back." "It's looking for me," she gasped. "You know it." Rin clenched his jaw. "All the more reason to hide, not chase it." But before either could speak again, a scream ripped through the air, a sound so raw and agonized, it cut straight to the soul. Rin spun, gripping Alaria's arm protectively as Lorien appeared from the shadows. Blade drawn, blood streaked across the steel. His expression was fierce, commanding. But when his eyes landed on Aria, something softer flickered there. "You were told to stay in your room," he said, voice tight. "I heard the creature," she said, breathless. It's calling to me." Lorien stepped closer, lowering his weapon. "Describe what you feel," she swallowed. "Not words, not sound. It's like it knows me." Lorien exchanged a grave look with Rin. "Then we cannot let it reach you." Before they could move, a shattering crash erupted at the end of the corridor. Stone cracked. Dust exploded upward. A figure stepped from the cloud. Tall, hunched, grotesque. Alaria's breath hitched violently. The creature towered above them, skin mottled like decaying bark, limbs too long and joints bending wrong. Its eyes glowed the same feral hue she had seen beneath the ravine. Unnatural, ancient, hungry. It inhaled deeply, and a low growl rumbled from its chest. Rin shoved Aria behind him, drawing a second blade. Lorien's body dropped into a stance too fluid to be human, his Lycan nature surfacing like a shadow stretching. "Don't let it touch her," he growled. The creature lunged with a speed that defied its size. Rin intercepted it, his blade slicing across its arm, but it didn't flinch. Instead, it swung its limb, sending Rin crashing into the wall with brutal force. Aria screamed his name, but Lorien leapt forward, claws erupting from his hands as he slashed across the creature's chest. Dark, thick blood splattered the floor, sizzling where it landed. The creature shrieked, a sound that rattled the torches. Still it pushed forward, not toward Lorien, but toward Aria. She stumbled back, her heartbeat chaotic, and beneath the terror she felt it again, the whisper, "You." The creature's hand reached for her, claws glinting. Lorien lunged to intercept, striking its shoulder so hard the impact cracked bone. But the creature didn't stop. It slammed its other hand into the floor beside Aria, sending a shockwave that knocked her backward. Her head hit stone, pain flashed white. The creature leaned in, breath cold, eyes burning like dying stars. Aria braced for the killing blow, yet instead of tearing her apart, it inhaled deeply, almost reverently. She felt its presence pressing against her mind, probing, searching. A memory she didn't know she had flickered. Her father standing before a carved tree, whispering something in a language she didn't understand. The creature shuddered, recoiling slightly, as if recognizing something inside her. "What do you want?" she whispered. Its glowing eyes softened for just one heartbeat, as if pleading. Then Lorien crashed into it with a roar, slamming the creature into the opposite wall. Stone shattered. The creature howled in rage and pain, then vanished into the shadows, melting into the cracks of the collapsing corridor like smoke. Silence crashed down around them. Aria lay trembling on the floor, her breath unsteady. Lorien knelt beside her instantly. "Are you hurt?" She nodded weakly. "It knew me," she whispered. "It knew exactly who I was." His jaw tightened. "Then your father's secrets didn't die with him." Guards flooded the corridor, Rin limping but alive among them. Lorien helped Aria stand, his hand firm on her waist, supporting her as her legs wobbled beneath her. Rin wiped blood from his lip and exhaled sharply. "What in the gods' names was that thing?" Lorien didn't answer immediately. His eyes stayed locked on Alaria's, intense, searching, as though she held the missing piece to a puzzle he had chased for too long. "An elder-bound creature," he said at last. "One that should not exist. One that cannot act without being summoned." Alaria's breath stilled. "Summoned? By who?" Lorien cupped the back of her head gently, checking the bruise forming beneath her hairline. "That is what we will discover, but one thing is certain." He paused, voice dropping low, steady, unshakable. "It was not trying to kill you." Aria shivered. "Then what did it want?" Lorien's gaze sharpened. "You." Her pulse throbbed in her ears. "Why?" His expression, usually unreadable, softened with something she didn't expect, concern that felt too sincere to be political. "Because whatever your father protected you from," he said quietly, "is waking, and it knows your name." The corridor's torches flickered as if reacting to his words, and in the settling silence of the keep, Aria understood one terrifying truth. Maelric hadn't just betrayed her. He had unleashed something ancient, something tied to her blood, something that would not stop until it reclaimed what it sought. The healers in Crimsonstone Keep worked quickly, smearing cool salves across the bruise on Alaria's temple, but their gentle hands couldn't soothe the deeper ache twisting through her chest. The creature's whisper still pulsed behind her ribs like a trapped heartbeat, as if it had left a shred of its presence inside her. She sat on the edge of a cot in the healing chamber, staring at her trembling hands. Rin stood guard near the door, refusing medical attention, despite the blood trailing down his arm. Lorien paced the room like a storm weighing its next strike. Every time his gaze drifted toward Aria, she felt the pressure of unspoken questions between them. Finally, he stopped and spoke in a low, steady tone. "This creature, it reacted to you as if it recognized something." She swallowed hard. "My father," she whispered. "This has to be tied to him." Lorien stepped closer, crossing his arms. "Tell me everything you remember about him." Alaria's breath hitched. "I was young when he died, but he always warned me about the wilds. He'd take me deep into the forest only to show me runes carved in trees. She met Lorian's eyes. He said they were not to keep danger away, but to keep something in. The room fell still. Rin straightened, face darkening with realization. Elder wards, he murmured. Lorian nodded grimly. Runes meant to bind ancient forces. Aria shook her head, confusion knotting her thoughts. But why would my father know how to make those? Lorian studied her carefully, almost painfully. Because elder magic doesn't come to ordinary wolves. It comes through lineage. Her breath faltered. You're saying my father was... Connected, Lorian finished quietly, to powers older than the packs. Powers capable of creating or controlling creatures like the one that followed you. Shock rippled through her. She had never seen her father shift into anything unnatural. He had hunted, fought, protected, like any wolf. Yet, the whispers she'd heard as a child, his late-night trips into the forest, the haunted look in his eyes when he thought she wasn't watching, the way he always insisted she never walk alone. Aria pressed her palms to her head. If he bound that creature, why is it after me now? Lorian knelt in front of her, his presence grounding. Because the envoy found something in Moonfell Reach. Something Mylric didn't want revealed. Your father's runes kept that creature dormant, but if Mylric destroyed them... He released it, Aria whispered, and then blamed me for the envoy's death. Lorian's jaw tightened. Exactly. Although the truth was finally taking shape, it brought no comfort. Only a deeper fear, one that reached into the oldest corners of her memory. My father used to tell me, Aria murmured, that some things hunger not for flesh, but for purpose. She lifted her eyes to Lorian. What if this creature wants something my father hid inside me? The idea chilled her, even as she said it. Lorian didn't dismiss the possibility. He sat beside her on the cot, closer than he had ever been, the warmth of him radiating like a shield. If something was placed in you, power, knowledge, elder magic, then you are not the cause of this chaos. You're the prize. Alaria's pulse raced, and Mylric knew. He feared it, Lorian corrected. Feared what you might become. The words cut deep. She had spent years trying to earn her alpha's trust, never realizing he saw her not as a valued pack member, but as a threat waiting to bloom. She clenched her jaw, fury and grief swirling like a storm. He killed my father, she whispered suddenly, the realization slamming into her chest. Or he let something kill him. Lorian's silence said enough. She wasn't just a sacrifice. She was a loose end Mylric had meant to cut long ago. Lorian rose to his feet and turned toward Rin. Prepare the riding party. We leave at first light. Aria shot to her feet, eyes widening. Where? Moonfell Reach, Lorian answered, determination hardening his voice. If your father left answers, they're there. And if Mylric created this threat, he will answer for it. Aria felt a sharp twist of fear. You can't confront him. He'll deny everything. Lorian's silver eyes gleamed. I don't need his confession. I only need proof. Rin nodded. The creature's presence alone is damning. But Aria shook her head, stepping forward. You don't understand. Mylric is dangerous. He hides his lies beneath loyalty. He'll twist anything you say into something else. Lorian stepped closer, gripping her shoulders gently, but firmly. I will not let him twist you into a criminal. You deserve the truth, and so does my realm. Her heart pounded at the conviction in his voice. For years she had begged to be seen, to be believed, and now, in the middle of a Lycan King's fortress, she finally was. You're risking war, she whispered. I'm preventing one, Lorian replied. If Mylric strikes again, the realm burns. But if we uncover his actions first, we stop the fire before it spreads. The healers cleared the room, leaving Aria alone with her thoughts as Lorian and Rin finalized preparations. She wandered toward the open balcony, staring down at the ravine below. Wind pushed through her hair, carrying the scent of pine, smoke, and something metallic, faint but unmistakable. The creature was still near, still watching, still waiting. She wrapped her arms around herself, fighting the chill that crept beneath her skin. "Father," she whispered into the wind, "what did you do?" For a moment she imagined a voice answering, a deep, steady voice she remembered from childhood. "Protect the living, honor the old ways, guard the bloodline." Tears pricked her eyes. "You should have told me." Behind her, footsteps approached. Lorian's voice softened. "You should rest." Aria shook her head. "I can't." He stepped beside her, hands resting on the railing. "Fear doesn't make you weak," he said. "It prepares you." She turned to him, meeting his gaze. "And what if what's inside me is the reason this creature isn't killing me?" Lorian's expression darkened. "Then we face it together." His words settled into her bones like a promise she didn't dare believe. She exhaled shakily and nodded. Tomorrow, they returned to the place where everything began. And this time, she would not arrive as a sacrifice. She would arrive as the legacy her father left behind, whether she understood it or not. Dawn rose cold and pale as Lorian's riding party gathered in the courtyard, their armor gleaming faintly beneath the early light. Aria tightened her cloak around her shoulders, the wind biting with a sharpness that felt personal, like the forest itself was warning her not to return. Crimson Stone Keep loomed behind her, but for the first time since arriving, its walls felt less like a prison and more like protection she was choosing to step away from. Lorian approached with his horse, the dark mane rippling like shadow under sunlight. "Stay close to me," he said. "Not because you're captive, but because the wilds are unpredictable." She resisted the urge to snap back. Fear made her temper sharp, but when she looked into his steady gaze, she saw nothing but sincerity. "I'm not afraid of the forest," she murmured. "I'm afraid of what I'll find there." Lorian's expression softened just slightly. "Truth is rarely gentle, Aria." She nodded as Rin arrived beside them. "We ride ahead of the main guard. If Maelric senses something, we lose our advantage." Aria took a deep breath and mounted her horse. As they rode out, the gates of Crimson Stone Keep closing behind them, she felt a tremor of dread coil deep inside her. Home was waiting, but not the home she remembered. The whisper bloom wilds stretched out before them in gnarled shadows and morning mist, the trees twisting like ancient guardians. Aria inhaled the familiar scent of moss and cold earth, and a rush of memories surged, running barefoot with Sivrin, collecting herbs with her father, listening to his voice echo through the trees as he taught her how to track with silence. The ache nearly buckled her. Lorian rode close enough for their shoulders to brush. "You know these woods better than we do," he said. "Lead us to where your father showed you the runes." She hesitated, the reins trembling in her hands. "It's deeper than most pack wolves go. Maelric forbade us from entering after my father's death." "Forbade you," Rin said, "or forbade anyone from learning what he did." Aria didn't answer. Instead, she nudged her horse forward. The forest thickened as they rode, branches low, ground soft beneath the horse's hooves. As they moved deeper, she could almost feel the creature's presence again, distant, lurking, patient. A faint whisper brushed her thoughts, too soft to form words but strong enough to tighten her chest. She shivered violently. "It's near," she murmured. Lorian's jaw tightened. "It won't strike yet. It's waiting." "For what?" "Us to uncover something Maelric fears." They reached a glade bathed in soft, filtered light, a place untouched by time, where moss softened the earth and the trees curved protectively overhead. Alaria's breath caught in her throat. "Here," she whispered, "and my father brought me here." Carved into the trunks were spirals, runes, symbols older than any pack memory. Faint, glowing softly, a pulse like a heartbeat. Rin dismounted and moved toward one of the carvings, touching it with the tip of his glove. "These are active," he said. "Someone renewed them." Aria felt the words like a blow. "My father," she whispered. "He must have been here right before he died." Her throat tightened painfully. Lorien approached the largest tree, the one bearing a rune shaped like an open eye. He brushed his fingers across the pattern. "This is a warding mark," he said, "not to keep a creature out, but to anchor it." Ilaria's breath stilled. "Anchor? Bind it," Lorien clarified. "This creature didn't wander. It was held, trapped, and when the runes were broken, it was freed," she finished softly. Her heart pounded. "Lorien, if my father bound it, why?" He looked at her, eyes dark with knowledge she wasn't ready for. "To protect something, or someone." Her pulse faltered. "Me." Lorien didn't answer, but his silence spoke louder than words. They walked deeper into the glade until Ilaria noticed something she had never seen before. A stone altar partially buried in moss, cracked with age. Her breath hitched. "This wasn't here when I was little." Lorien knelt beside it, brushing away dirt to reveal more runes, ones carved with precision, ones meant to conceal rather than bind. "Your father hid something beneath this," he said. "Help me." Together they pushed aside the moss-covered stone. Beneath it lay a hollow. Ilaria's heart slammed painfully as she reached in, fingers closing around something wrapped in worn cloth. She lifted it slowly, a book, old and bound in leather, the cover etched with the symbol of the open eye. Her hands shook violently. "This is his," she whispered. "His journal." Lorien stepped closer. "Open it." She hesitated. Once she read it, there would be no turning away from the truth. Her father's voice, her father's fears, everything would be laid bare. Finally, she unwrapped the cloth and opened the journal. The first page held a single sentence in her father's familiar handwriting. "If you find this, Ilaria, it means the creature is no longer bound, and it will come for you, not to kill you, but to return what you carry." Her stomach dropped. "Return what I carry," she whispered. Rin leaned in. "What does that mean?" Ilaria flipped the page, eyes widening. "I placed a fragment of the Elder Sigil within you on the day you were born. You are the vessel. You are the ward. And if you die, the creature awakens fully." A wave of dizziness washed over her, knees buckling. Lorien grabbed her before she could fall, his hands steadying her. "He put elder magic inside you," Lorien said softly. Ilaria shook her head violently. No, I would have felt it. I would have known." "It was dormant," Lorien said. "A seal, a safeguard." Tears blurred her vision. "Why would he do that to me?" "To protect the realms," he answered. "To keep the old creatures from awakening." Rin's expression darkened. "If Malric learned of this, he would want her gone, to break the ward." Lorien nodded grimly. "Which means he didn't only sacrifice you, Ilaria. He tried to unleash the creature fully." The truth hit her like a physical blow. Her alpha hadn't feared her strength. He had feared her existence. He wanted her dead, not because she was dangerous, but because she was the lock preventing something catastrophic. Ilaria closed the journal with trembling hands. "We have to go back," she whispered. "We have to stop him." Lorien nodded. "We will." But before he could say more, the ground shook violently beneath their feet. Trees groaned, runes flickered. A low, mournful roar swept through the wilds, deeper, louder, closer than ever before. Ilaria's blood turned to ice. "It followed us," she breathed. Lorien drew his blade, stepping in front of her. "No," he said, eyes narrowing. "It isn't following anymore." He glanced toward the shadows trembling at the edge of the glade. "It's coming to claim what it believes belongs to it." And as the forest went silent, Ilaria realized the creature wasn't the only one hunting her now. Malric would soon know she had uncovered the truth, and he would stop at nothing to silence her before she could return home. The forest erupted before Ilaria had time to breathe. The ground split with a thunderous crack as the creature burst from the shadows, its hulking form ripping through branches as though they were paper. Lorien shoved Ilaria behind him just as the creature lunged, claws gouging deep trenches into the earth. Rin darted to the side, blade glinting, trying to flank. But the creature's movements were too eerie, too fluid for its size. It sniffed the air once, and its burning eyes snapped directly to Aria. A sound like a half-gasp, half-growl escaped its jagged maw, and she felt the whisper hammer through her skull again. Vessel. The word stunned her. Lorien roared, shifting mid-stride, his body expanding, fur bursting through skin as he collided with the creature with bone-shaking force. The two beasts tore at each other, Lorien's silver-furred form sleek and deadly, the creature's mass gnarled and grotesque. Rin slashed at its leg, trying to cripple it, but its strength was monstrous. Alaria's pulse pounded as she backed away, until her heel struck. Something soft. She looked down and froze. A body. A wolf she recognized from Moonfell Reach. Her breath shattered. "They're here," she whispered. "Malric sent them." And when she lifted her gaze, figures moved between the trees. Her former pack, dozens of them encircling the glade. Malric stepped forward with the calm of a man witnessing a plan unfold exactly as intended. His eyes glinted with triumph. "You should have died quietly, Aria," he said, voice smooth as poison, "before your father's secrets reached the wrong ears." Lorien snarled, still locked with the creature, but Malric continued without fear. His wolves surrounded Aria, forming a tightening circle. "Your father was a fool," he spat. "He bound an elder beast to a child, to you, hoping you would grow strong enough to hold it forever." Aria clenched her fists. "He was protecting the realm." "No," Malric snapped. "He was protecting you, the monster's favorite vessel." Her stomach twisted. "I am not a vessel for anything." "Aren't you?" Malric stepped closer, lips curling. "Why else would the creature seek you? Why else would the elder mark pulse beneath your skin?" Alaria's breath hitched as a strange warmth stirred in her chest, as if something inside her responded to his words. Panic surged through her. The creature threw Lorien off momentarily and slammed its claws to the ground, sending vibrations through the glade. Malric's eyes gleamed. "Kill the king," he commanded his wolves, "and bring the girl to me." They shifted instantly, bodies contorting into massive forms. The glade erupted into chaos as wolves lunged at Lorien's warriors, teeth flashing, snarls ripping the air apart. Aria backed up until she hit the altar, journal still clenched in her shaking hand. She wasn't ready for this, was she? Rin charged toward her, blood streaking down his jaw, barely holding off two attacking wolves. "Stay behind me," he shouted. But Alaria's instincts screamed otherwise. The creature watched her from across the glade, its gaze no longer hungry, but desperate. It wasn't hunting her. It was answering something she carried, something her father buried inside her. The truth slammed into her chest. If she died, the creature would awaken fully. But if she lived, if she found a way to control the power inside her, she could bind it again. Lorien regained his footing, launching himself at Malric's wolves. Blood, earth, and fury blurred together in a violent dance. Malric approached Aria with a slow, confident stride, shifting partially, eyes glowing, teeth sharpening. "Give me the book," he hissed. "You don't even know how to read Elder Script." "I don't need to," he said, baring his teeth. "I only need what's inside you." He lunged. Aria darted back, heart hammering, adrenaline turning her limbs to fire. She grabbed a fallen spear and swung it at his face. He caught it with ease, snapping it in half. "You can't fight me," he growled, but her father's voice whispered in her head. "Guard the bloodline." For the first time in her life, Aria didn't run. She struck Malric across the jaw with the broken spear shaft, surprising even herself with the force. He staggered, fury igniting in his eyes. "You ungrateful whelp," he spat. "I should have ended you the night your father died." The truth sliced through her like a blade. "You killed him," she breathed. Malric's silence was confirmation. Rage flooded her veins, not wild, but sharp, focused. Something inside her pulsed in answer. Light flickered faintly beneath her skin, tracing the shape of a rune beneath her ribs. The creature howled, writhing, sensing the awakening. Lorien, battered and bleeding, staggered toward her. "Ilaria, don't fight it," he rasped. "Use it." The ground trembled again as the creature reared back, but this time Ilaria didn't recoil. She stepped forward, hand outstretched. Rin shouted her name, but Lorien held him back. "She must do it." The creature lowered its head, inching closer. Its breath washed over her, cold, ancient, carrying the scent of forgotten earth. Ilaria felt the warmth rise in her chest, building, burning, spreading to her arms, her fingertips. When her palm touched the creature's forehead, the world went silent. A rush of memories flooded her. Her father chanting runes, weaving light into her infant form. The creature bound within the wilds, Malric shattering the runes in secret, the envoy discovering the truth and being murdered before he could speak. Tears ran down her cheeks. "He wanted you free," she whispered. "He wanted chaos." The creature's glowing eyes softened. It pressed closer, offering itself. In that moment, she understood. It wasn't evil. It was incomplete. A guardian missing its anchor, and she was the anchor. Energy burst outward in a blinding wave as the creature fused its presence with hers. Light coiling around her wrist like a brand, spiraling up her arm. Malric screamed in outrage and charged toward her, fully shifted, but Lorien intercepted him, slamming him into the ground with a roar that shook the trees. Rin and the warriors pushed back the remaining pack wolves, forcing them to scatter. The energy around Ilaria intensified, swirling until the air vibrated with power. The creature dissolved into light, sinking through her skin, burning into her bones. It hurt. Gods, it hurt. But she didn't let go. She held on until the last flicker of the creature vanished inside her, leaving only silence and a faint glow across her fingertips. When she looked up, Lorien was standing over Malric, claws at the traitor's throat. "Finish him!" Malric spat. "Do it." But Lorien didn't move. He looked at Ilaria. "The choice is yours." She stepped toward them, trembling, breath shaking. Malric glared up at her with hatred that had festered for years. "You are an abomination," he snarled. "A curse your father should have drowned at birth." Ilaria stood over him, power humming beneath her skin. The glow faded slowly, settling deep in her core. "No," she said softly, voice steady, unbreakable. "I am what he feared." Malric's eyes widened, not with fury, but with the first flicker of dread she had ever seen in him. And the forest held its breath as Ilaria Winfell chose her justice. For a long moment, the glade lay frozen in breathless silence. Ilaria felt the elder energy settling inside her, threading through her veins like liquid fire, weaving itself into every heartbeat. The glow beneath her skin dimmed to a faint pulse, steady, ancient, alive. She stood over Malric, her shadow cast long across the moss-covered ground. His chest heaved with rage and fear, his eyes wide, no longer seeing her as a threat to his power, but as something far beyond his control. Lorien hovered nearby, claws still extended, chest rising and falling with exertion. Rin wiped blood from his cheek as the last of Malric's wolves fled into the forest, abandoning their fallen alpha without hesitation. Ilaria exhaled slowly. "You killed my father," she said, voice shaking with anger and truth. Malric bared his teeth. "He betrayed the pack. He chose you over Moonfell. His death was justice." Ilaria's jaw tightened. "His death was your fear." She knelt slowly, meeting his gaze without flinching. "You wanted the creature free. You wanted the realm weak. You wanted power through chaos." Malric snarled, spitting blood. "And now you'll finish me? Prove I was right?" Her chest tightened. She wasn't the girl he'd raised in fear. She was something he couldn't name and would never understand. Lorien stepped beside her, voice low. "Your choice will shape the future of both our people." His words grounded her. She stared down at Malric, broken, defeated, hateful. Ending him would be easy. Too easy. But her father's journal echoed in her mind. Guard the bloodline. Protect the living. Malric did not deserve her mercy, but the realm deserved her discernment. Slowly, Aria rose. You don't get my death, she said softly, and you don't get my power. She turned to Lorien. Take him alive. Malric's eyes widened, rage twisting into disbelief. You think imprisoning me will stop what's coming, he spat. Aria stepped closer, her voice a blade wrapped in calm. What's coming already passed through me. I survived. You won't. Lorien signaled 2 warriors, who seized Malric and forced him to his knees. The traitor howled, thrashing, but his power was gone, stripped by truth, fear, and the loyalty he'd forfeited long ago. As they bound him, Aria felt the elder presence inside her ease, as though acknowledging her decision. The glade quieted, the runes glowing faintly again, stabilizing. Rin approached and touched, her shoulder gently. Your father would be proud. Her throat tightened. I hope so. She looked toward the canopy, imagining his spirit watching. The wind whispered around her, soft, warm, almost like a hand brushing her cheek. She breathed deeply, letting a piece of grief finally untangle itself from her ribs. The ride back to Moonfell Reach was tense and heavy. Lorien rode close to her, his presence steadying, his gaze often drifting toward her with silent questions. Aria kept her eyes on the trees passing by, each step of her horse carrying her toward the place that abandoned her, and the siblings she still loved. When they reached the pack's border, the wolves guarding it stiffened, shock rippling through them at the sight of Malric, bound and defeated. Aria dismounted first, stepping forward with a confidence she never imagined she would possess. The pack members gathered slowly, whispers spreading like sparks. Sivrin burst from the crowd the moment they saw her. Aria! They threw themselves into her arms, sobbing into her shoulder. Aria held them close, tears stinging her own eyes. I'm here, she whispered. I'm alive. Sivrin pulled back, face streaked with tears and disbelief. We heard you were dead. Aria smoothed their hair gently. I'm here, she repeated, and now everything changes. She turned toward the pack, lifting her chin. Malric betrayed the realm, and he betrayed us. He killed my father. He broke elder bindings. He tried to kill me to free a creature he could not control. Gasps surged through the wolves. Fear, confusion, anger. She saw it all. But she stood firm, power humming beneath her skin. Lorien stepped forward, his voice carrying across the clearing. These are crimes not only against your pack, but against mine. The Lycan kingdom will not tolerate leaders who destroy the balance of the realms. The pack elders looked shaken. One stepped forward, trembling. If what she says is true, then Malric has no right to lead. He never did, Aria said quietly. He ruled by fear, by control, by lies. The elder nodded slowly, turning to the others. Then leadership must change, immediately. Aria tensed. She knew what was coming before the elder even spoke. Aria Winfell, he said, bowing his head. You carry your father's legacy, his strength, his wisdom. You protected us even when we abandoned you. If you accept, the pack chooses you as alpha. Shock stole her breath. I don't... Sivrin squeezed her hand. You're the only one who should lead. Rin stepped forward, nodding. Your father respected the old ways. That matters. Lorien's gaze met hers, steady, encouraging, proud. You choose your own destiny now? Aria exhaled shakily, staring at the wolves who once looked away from her in fear and shame. They were watching now, truly watching. Not with expectation, but with hope. Slowly she lifted her chin. I accept. A ripple of relief washed through the pack. Sivrin wept openly. Even the trees seemed to shift, as though acknowledging a new era beginning. That night, under a sky dusted with stars, Lorien approached her as she stood alone near the edge of the forest. The air was quiet. thick with the promise of change. "The realm owes you a debt," he said softly. "You bound an ancient creature. You exposed a traitor. You saved countless lives." Aria looked at him, her voice gentle. "I didn't do it alone." He stepped closer. "No, but you carried the heaviest truth." She studied his face, the quiet strength, the fierce loyalty, the softness he showed only when the world wasn't looking. "What happens now?" she asked. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear with unexpected tenderness. "Now," he murmured, "you lead your pack, and if you choose, you walk beside me as ally, as equal." Her breath caught. "And if I choose more than that?" His expression shifted, softening, warming, opening. "Then I will meet you wherever you stand." The wind rustled the leaves, carrying the vanishing echo of the creature's presence, no longer whispering, no longer calling. It was at peace because she was. Aria stepped closer, her hand resting against Lorian's chest, feeling the steady beat beneath his armor. "Then meet me here," she whispered, "as a king who stood with me when no one else did." Lorian bowed his forehead to hers. Always. As dawn rose over Moonfell Reach, Aria Windfell stood tall, no longer the girl abandoned by her pack, no longer the vessel of an ancient creature, no longer a sacrifice. She was Alpha, protector, bloodline of an elder guardian. The spark her father left behind had become a fire, and the realm would feel its warmth for generations. If you made it all the way to the end, you're a legend. Now I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, which chapter hit you the hardest emotionally? Who's your favorite character? Aria, Lorian, Sivrin, or someone else? And should I continue this world with a sequel or bonus chapters? Your comments help this channel grow, and you already know, I read every one of them. If you love this story, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this video with someone who loves werewolf or fantasy romance. Thank you for spending your time with this story. Until next time, stay wild, stay kind, and keep your imagination sharp.